Hey guys, Boris here, bringing you another VOD review. Regionals are just around the corner, and despite spending almost 2 full weeks on the PB, top players are still attempting to innovate and limit test to gain the slightest of the edges over the competition. Therefore, let's jump in game with Broseph, who is known as one of the hardest workers outside of the game, and see if he has managed to cook anything up. We are playing in a Scuttle Puddle encounter, therefore definitely can see possibility for very high cap boards. Starting out here with a Sona pair and Jarvan would be signaling us to be potentially considering playing into some form of Demacia board, most likely into a Rise, which can cap quite high, and you have the possibility to unlock Galio very early, opting to instead make 10 here, which is generally, if you do so in such a situation, you would be considering to perhaps play even into a loss streak. Now we have the AP component, which is generally great since the meta is heavily dominated by fast 9 AP comps. Could also hold on to his Caitlyn if he wanted to field it to unlock an Orianna, but offer not to. This is an interesting choice to do so. And this is a very high both econ and item start. We already have 6 components, which is quite rare in this situation. Therefore, something like Buried Treasure should greatly lose value. We do not have the board and would want to be tempoing with it. We could consider Hedge Fund, but it's not the greatest of the econ augments. And since it's a prismatic start in a Scuttle Puddle, if we are opting to look for an econ augment, which is currently strongest in the meta, we would want to perhaps find something stronger. Tactician's Kitchen would give us the potential for a direction and for a high cap. However, it could also lead us astray with an emblem. Therefore, I'll probably be re-rolling first the Buried Treasures and perhaps even the Hedge Fund to consider a potential for a better econ augment to appear. Looks like we're not even going to be scouting. Expect this is going to be a better econ option, and obviously upwards mobility even more so, especially since we're already playing from a low streak spot. So we have found our econ augment, which is how the current meta is going for, and upwards mobility definitely can help you to get to those level 9 boards quite easily, and we are going to be playing into low streak, which this augment generally does. Since you're not exactly opting to play for tempo, going to instead go to make 20 here. Fielding also a Ophelia, so perhaps he's going into a game with some form of a plan already. Also, the thing that upwards mobility is going to give us for potential for is to roll for a Bard, since that only requires 3 rerolls now. We can definitely be considering that as an option, but I would doubt that we are leaning into some form of Bard Ophelia's reroll, since it is generally lower cap. But it seems like we have already came in with a plan. We are looking to potentially be testing out the Jinx into Zone comp. Now, for our Piltover mods here, we would definitely then be looking for Blast Shields. Jinx generally greatly benefiting, very reliant on their frontline. Otherwise, we could take Electrical Overload or Caliber Nets, depending if we want for our comp to have a more burst, or CC, or delay, into allowing you to ramp. So yeah, we're going to opt to roll for a Bard here. Do not find anything else, but we are hopefully looking to Lost Recall. We do find the Ishtal as well. Could consider here losing 3 player combats in a row is perfectly going to fit in our plan. And since it's a prismatic opener, we just have to watch out that there's no one else open forting with something like perhaps Comeback Story. But since Warwick has in some way fallen a little bit out of the meta, and something like a Diana comp is not in the meta anymore either, even though with little bit glimpses of it, we should be fine to be completing it. Scout the lowest of the player. They have couple of upgrades, so if we hold on to not slamming the items, we should be fine, but might have to sack the positioning just in case they opt to do so as well, since their board has a little bit of damage. Therefore, probably not going to be making this Kiana. Also going to hide the quest. This is the tech that top players are always going to try to do. Especially if you want to be safe, you can just position your Kiana on that corner right there. She's going to be dragged in at the very end of the round timer. So we're definitely looking for a Jinx. And we saw that he mapped out the zone variation. Now, the more standard variation would be to play around the Freljord core with a board. Just give me a second. I'm going to pull up something here. If we wanted to play around the more Freljord of the board, we'll be playing around Jinx together with the Sejuani here and pairing that with Ashe. We would have a Warwick, Dolores, And we pair the defender in form of a Vi. And then we have obviously want some form of a gunslinger, could be EMF until we generally obviously will want to cap around Lucian Senna, and the last flex slot can be some form of a Taric since your guy wants to be benefiting. Now, this would be the general board. However, if you are going for Jinx 3 in this board, if you look, the Brom, Taric, then generally you are going to find single star copies of them, but on level 7, but your frontline until you make it a Sejuani 3 is quite weak. Therefore, players are experimenting around this zone core, knowing that the Jinx reroll is also quite good. We do high roll a Mundo too, just going to make that on a bench, and this is definitely going to enable our Jinx to be able to pop off. Now, it's interesting that obviously upwards mobility works into the reroll better, but if we went into the game with this kind of plan, we were looking for potential, obviously something like a prismatic ticket would have been the best of the options that we could have seen. Now going to sack our board just in case, because we were afraid of the last player. I'm going to drop down to 68, which is a little low, but we have that upwards mobility scaling. And now for our quest, if we opted to go, losing 4 more would put us in a little bit of dangerous territory. We were probably looking to potentially spike around 3-2 here with the augment. We have already a Rage Blade, and we could potentially, if we get another bow, definitely be having a quite decent Jinx if we're able to aggressively perhaps level to 7. So we might just cash out here. Yeah, having having an empty mage doesn't work, and all the other quests are just too slow otherwise. So we're just going to slot the Mundo 2 in that we already have and play around the spike, hopefully preserving some of that HP, because we will wanting to use that to ensure that we can hit our Jinx 3, right? On stage 4, we now, since there are players sacking to go 9, the 2-star 3 costs are generally going to be quite strong on the stage 4, preserving you some HP, but with 3 cost reroll, that's your worry that if you haven't hit them, you might start bleeding out too much. Therefore, you want to enter the stage 4 with some lives to spare. And we will wanting to be sacking our HP to be making to level 9 as well, with the upwards mobility enabling that. Now we're also not the richest, so perhaps pushing level 7 here is going to be a little bit rough. We unlock that Singed as well. Now obviously we're not going to be taking win out here. 1 overflow also plays into AP, so we're probably looking at the prismatic ticket here. Would be doubling down with that econ in the scuttle puddle, so that would drastically reduce our cap. But perhaps we have a potential with the prismatic ticket to be looking for a 3-star 4 cost. That would generally then be our only win condition. Turning a deadly is not. I don't see it exactly fitting into the zone comp. It's more of a Slayer's augment. Otherwise, it's not the great. It doesn't work out as well. 1 buff 2, but we would not have someone to use the blue buff really either. So we're just having to take prismatic ticket here and defaulting on our econ options. Now, the great thing is we are playing something around something like a Singe that pretty much no one else has on their board, right? So we could be chasing that. We could also be looking to backdoor and Italy. Going to opt to go for aggressive level 7 here. It's going to put us at 30 gold. Now, we want to be most likely winning the stages here, so going to make a 3-item Jinx. Go opting to go for that Gunblade as well, just to give here a little bit of extra stall. Now, generally, the 3rd item can be some form of a last booster, but since we have a couple of belts, we're going to opt to save for an even shroud. We're going to have the carousel prio, so we should be fine to secure a cloak, which is obviously going to be easier always than a glove. Did not slam our item the last turn, so have to delay the Warwick unlock. Now, he is pulling up the stats to potentially look for a Mundo Bis. Generally, the guy has built-in healing, so I'd assume he would love some form of resistances. As we can see, Bramble was declock right there, and obviously Visage, just incredible tank augment, attack item, this whole set. We have a level up win-out player on the opposite team, so we can see that the econ meta has, even though the highest econ of encounters in form of Scuttle Puddle, sometimes rivaled by obviously loot sub or gold sub, it's still extremely prioed. Even in prismatic augment selections, people are just doubling down on these econ augments, especially when playing from behind, in hopes to be able to reach the highest of the caps. Now, unlocking that Warwick, we also have to go for a spat. This is another thing. This comp is generally very great with the extra Spats find an Ornn here, but not sure if we can fit that in. Finally find that Jinx too. Had to dig quite deep for her. And we're able to pick up a couple of Mundos on the way, which is nice. But given that we started out with a Mundo 2 naturally, not exactly in a high roll spot at the moment. Thankfully able to put together a 2 streak here. Lost that 3-2 round, so we will have to be relying on the upwards ability to heal us up. Still, okay, now the pity shops are coming in, finding the Jinxes. Does he believe he's on the wave? Finding 6 Jinxes. Okay, now we are in a little bit of a better spot. Still at 20 gold, but we have that Prismatic ticket, so we'll hopefully be able to load in at least one of the 3 stars on for 1 or 4-2 when the rest of the lobby is going to be spiking. Close win that we pick up here, and also like we can see already with the upside of this zone comp is that we have the Singe that is just generally annoying, going to be in any kind of core carry, especially if you corner him like this. We have the Mundo that can be paired with any kind of bruiser, giving you more front line, and well, we have the Blitzcrank, and we are very naturally being able to slot in a Gunslinger. Here, now we high roll them as the Senna, so we had our high roll here, also picking up a Wukong, generally a very contested unit in the current meta. Going to be digging here since we're very close to that Mundo tree and the Jinx tree, able to get it. Going to go for Warwick items instead of the Mundo item. Well, we had the Sunfire, so I'm not sure what else we could have really made. Still, maybe would have considered making Last Whisper on the Senna here instead of a TG. But, and also we had options to make a Zone Emblem, so I'm interested to see what we were going to make this spat into. Now that we have hit, we have the spike, we want to capitalize on the spike and definitely be going on a win streak here to be able to push those levels and make it to a higher cap. So that's what we're looking for in our augment. We also have a couple of TGs, but we do not have tank items for a Mundo, so an item augment for a Mundo or for the Warwick and the way to utilize the spat could also be quite good. Jude Lotus, Jinx does not really like crit. I believe that her ability transforms her auto attacks, therefore they can crit from the base natural chance. Soul Awakening is quite good, especially if we're playing in a stall comp. We're able to ramp up and do that extra 2 damage. Coordination could give us another slot that we could play into, already splitting in a Quick Striker, but I believe Soul Awakening is going to be the biggest spec that we can write off right now, because Coordination is going to work some form of also another anti-econ, since we have to slot in another unit and we're low on gold. Component Heist is quite good if you're able to get here, but we are not exactly in the spot to do so. Now, if you are on high HP and you're sacking the stage for this augment is great. Lucky gloves, we have slab 2 gloves, but this is going to reduce our cap a little bit, and we will have to be chasing for another glove. Interesting, let's see how he manages to put, because at the moment we are going to be complete Mundo item set, and the other glove TGs will be going on units that are not doing as much, therefore the most immediate spike would probably be Soul Awakening, which we're going to go for, and we opt to do so. Now, we are low on gold, so we probably have to hold on at least till 4-5 to level into slot that Kindred in for us. Generally, Quick Striker not as needed on this Warwick, especially at the 1 star. Also checking out the Jinx items. I believe that we have some of the better options. Obviously, we can transition that Gunblade later on to a Warwick if we do find something like a Giant Slayer or a Last Whisper for the Jinx. But now that we expect, and now that we are thankfully queuing to someone that is sacking, we're able to win rounds together, going on a 5 streak. Also interesting to see how he positions the Warwick in the backline. Now generally having the melee carries in the 3rd row is sometimes quite beneficial, since if they have a melee carry in the 2nd row, you're able to just walk up on them and hit him, other than something like an Bessa that's just going to dash away. Now already someone level 9 on 4-2 with Rise. This is the triple Prismatic Scuttle Puddle. This game is obviously an insane of a lobby, but we can see that we are still able to capitalize here. Since we have hit our spikes quite on pace, well, even ahead of pace in some form. Could debate what happens with the 3 Prismatic Augments. And others are generally opting to go aggressively, but do so on the low gold. Now we are able to get a spatula for free here as a 3rd pick on the carousel. No one really wanted Fiddle with the spatula, since it most seem to have locked in their game plan. So going to level here, find the Kindred pair, going to use our free rerolls in perhaps upgrading this Wukong. Now obviously the Wukong is going to be quite strong if you're able to get it, but just playing around Wukong in this current meta is quite hard. Obviously, we'll have to evaluate the lobby. Level 10 win out Melt 2 already. Now, let's see how we fare against this, but we're able to fare quite greatly. This Jinx is definitely a strong unit, as has the promise been showing. Also, unlock a Volibear. If we are interested in playing around that, not exactly sure. Able to find the, finally, at least one of the upgrades for our 4 cost. Now, I'm interested to, like, could we potentially drop down to 3 zone? Now, we have this singed, but I think with an emblem we are allowed to really drop down to, to replace the Blitzcrank with a Shyvana at this moment. Otherwise at 9 we can slot in any 5 costs as we have done with the Fiddle now for our 9th slot. Otherwise Shyvana should generally just be 3 good running 3 jog. Who would care, since Shyvana provides the durability and perhaps is the best aura in the game. Otherwise we can play around like a Skarner or a Taric. Taric in the current meta, since the lobbies are quite AP heavy, would probably be quite good. Able to find that the Even Shroud would want to have a 3rd item for our Mundo, but we'll have to suffice with a couple of items. Going to go for a BT instead, since we had that open sword. For the Warwick can also face tank a little bit for ourselves. Now the Demacia Rise board on the verge there, so we are mapping out the potential to go for a 3-star 4 cost right now. We're realizing that we're not really going to be able to make it to level 9, and since the lobby is capping so high around these 5 costs already, they are going to mostly be pulled out of the pool. And since we have that Prismatic ticket, we are realizing that our win condition is the 3-star 4 cost, holding on to the Sambessa that we have to see if there's a player already there. Want to be denying any potential, and we're hoping that perhaps they even die, but we're definitely doing quite good. Now, even with double Prismatic, we are still riding this pace, and this Mundo 3 definitely seems like a legit tank for ourselves, even with a couple of items, and both of them being utility items, not even true tank items. Quite a lot of players have been complaining that, people make it to their 5 costs with 1-star boards with double, triple econ augments. But we can see that definitely the way to punish these players is to be playing around 3-star reroll, and as the space is getting more explored. Obviously, we knew that the Ahri is quite strong, but Jinx is definitely showing some promise. And if you have some little bit extra durability, as we have in this form of the zone trait, you're able to surpass the damage. And we have a Gunslinger emblem option as well. That would be a great Warwick item if you opted to go so. Crown Guard, not exactly the most appealing of the Tycantam options, and so we're going to go for a Gunslinger emblem, get that on the Warwick here. And now we actually... if we opted to level, we could go for 4 Gunslinger, but we're going to be rolling here to potentially deny and being on the hunt for a 3-star forecast of ourselves, able to find 5 Wukongs here as well. Now up against another Rise board, the Demacia Rise board here. She's able to take her down weaker units. The set comes in and takes the Mundo out, but the Jinx, with the extra healing from the Gunblade, is able to withstand the damage from the Rise, and we're able to secure a top 4 for ourselves. Going on a 12 win streak, all enabled for realizing necessity to spike, and these players just contesting themselves a million ways. So we're able to sustain their damage through the beefiestness of the front line. This is why I believe that this zone variation of the Jinx reroll, which just seemed a more natural way to play it before, has shown a potential. Now, this player has reached their quite high cap on level 10, but we're still able to deal with them. Obviously, we have that Gunslinger Emblem Warwick now that is also a menace for them to deal with. But we're doing quite good and still rolling here. We have primed up a Silas for ourselves as well. But we are not running a Vita pair. We're able to find a Kindred too. Obviously, if we're rolling this much on the level 8, we're going to find a 5 cost that didn't seem that anyone lobby is really playing. Now, I would be leaning here. Perhaps a Visage? No, we're going for a mana item. And do find a Warmog, which is going to a little bit inferior. We also have the Warwick to chase out for 6 Warwicks, but it's going to be somewhat hard to hit. And we're just holding on to all the 4 costs, so we are just fully committing to this 4 cost reroll plan. As we just see that there's no other way that we could realistically cap higher. Yeah, so we're running into these Silas boards now that the Silas is an absolute menace. And we see that, yeah, these guys are going to be potential to reaching higher cap than us, therefore we need to be rolling. And we just checked that all the free all of the free forecasts that are there, we're going to be looking out for them. Now this player has 6 rises on their board. This is also quite scary for us, even though perhaps they have sacrificed a slot on their side. They are level 10 and this double rise is definitely putting in some work. The set didn't even really come back. No, it did. It's fine. 6 Wukongs as well, 7 Wukongs. This is 5 MFs. Past the people in the fiddle apparently. Find the Wukong 3. Now it's talking about how he is one of the more contested units. No one in this lobby seems to be playing around Wukong 3. We're going to have a Gunslinger Wukong spinning on them. Obviously transitioning these AD items onto the Wukong, as generally the tanks have now been scaled to do some proper damage, but if you just toss the full tankiness items, you might not have enough for them to just stalling, and the rest of the board, since they have backline access, are able to take them out. Now, unless they hit Rise, we should be able to do so. So we're selling the 5 costs that we have to increase their pool, or perhaps they're chasing another 3-star forecast, looking out for that. Close to that MF, close to that Velvet, but not exactly there, and the player did not seem to hit the Rise 3 and be able to pick up a win. Very well played by Broseph, recognizing what his win condition is, recognizing when he needs to spike, and that we are playing double econ, we need to be spiking aggressively and then playing for a win out through this form. I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope that you learned something new, and I wish to see you in the next one. Have a good one.